My billionaire husband was drugged and ended up sleeping with a college girl. As soon as he sobered up, he called me, his voice filled with anxiety and panic. Rachel, I was set up. I did something I shouldn't have. But I gave her money, she won't bother me again. We had been in love for 8 years. I thought it was just an accident. 6 months later, Andrew went on a business trip to another city. News of a devastating earthquake flooded the media. When I rushed to the hospital, I saw Andrew standing outside a hospital room. His expression complicated. The doctor told me that Fiona had been pregnant for 3 months, and she had dug through the rubble with her bare hands to save Andrew. All 10 of her fingers were injured and bleeding. Andrew gripped my hand tightly, his tone humble. A few months ago, her family fell ill and passed away. She came to me for help, and I was drunk. I didn't expect things to happen like that. Don't worry, she won't step into our house. She won't affect your place. Suddenly, Fiona rushed out and knelt before me, crying, "Madam, I beg you, please let the child live." Andrew looked at me, pleading. "Rachel, you're the one who always sees things clearly. The child is innocent." I stared at him, then suddenly smiled. "Andrew, either we break up, or she gets the hell out." "I'm not breaking up." Andrew's eyes turned red as he clutched my hand. "But I have to take responsibility for her." Later, Fiona gave birth to a pair of twins, and the entire Hahn family was overjoyed. I took off the ring from my ring finger and dialed a number I had never called before. "I agree to your offer." The person on the other end chuckled softly. "Rachel, looking forward to working with you." Chapter 1. I stood outside the hospital room, my fingers unconsciously tightening. The door was ajar. I could see Mr. and Mrs. Hahn each holding a baby in their arms, beaming with joy. Andrew, who usually wore a cold expression, was now gently teasing the baby in his arms with a smile I had never seen before, tender and doting. What a cruel irony. They looked like the perfect, happy family. When Andrew looked up and saw me, his expression froze. "Rachel, you're finally back." I said nothing. Mrs. Hahn glanced at me sideways, her tone icy as shards of glass. "So you came back after all? Had enough peace and quiet up in the mountains? It's good that you're back." Mr. Hahn tried to mediate, though his eyes never left the baby. "You've come just in time for the baby's 1-month celebration. As the mother, you should show some goodwill." Mrs. Hahn's tone softened slightly. "The babies haven't been named yet. You and Andrew should think of names. As long as you live peacefully from now on, your position as the Hahn family's daughter-in-law won't change." I looked at them expressionlessly and nodded. "All right." After the 2 elders left, Andrew's phone rang. He glanced at me, then turned away to answer it. Now the room was just me and Fiona. She looked radiant, every strand of hair perfectly styled. Clearly, the Hahn family had spared no expense in treating her well over the past 6 months. "Big sister," she said timidly, "if I did anything wrong, you can scold or hit me. But please, stop fighting with young Master Hahn. You know he only loves you. While you were gone, he had someone clean your room every day." "Fiona," I looked at her coldly, "you don't have to pretend anymore. The money he gave you back then was enough for you to live lavishly for a lifetime. You could have disappeared forever. But you came back to beg for his help, and that's how this child came to be. You know perfectly well what you were after." Her face flushed red, then turned pale. Suddenly, she shoved a baby into my arms. That warm little bundle of life startled me, and I panicked. The next second, the baby slipped from my arms and fell hard to the ground, wailing at the top of its lungs. In the midst of the sharp cries, Andrew rushed in and shoved me aside. I stumbled back, watching as he picked up the baby with distress written all over his face. The way he looked at me was filled with complicated emotions. He didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. Fiona burst into tears beside him. "Young Master Hahn, I just wanted Madam to hold the baby." I never thought she would. Chapter 2. Andrew's voice was cold. "Rachel, Fiona's getting discharged tomorrow. If you really can't stand being around the kids, maybe you should move to the West Villa for now." I bit my lower lip so hard I didn't stop until I tasted blood. I hadn't brought much with me when I left for the spiritual retreat, and now everything I owned fit into a single suitcase. I sat alone in the empty villa, waiting from night until dawn. Maybe this was better, at least I wouldn't have to watch them play happy family right in front of me. Memories surged through my mind like a flood. Andrew and I grew up together. We'd been married for 8 years. Once seen as the ideal couple in our social circle. Then came that incident. He was framed by a business rival and ended up sleeping with a college girl. As soon as he woke up, he called me, his voice trembling. Rachel. I was set up. I already paid her to keep quiet. She'll never show up again. And I believed him. But it didn't take long before that woman, Fiona, came back into our lives. After her parents passed away, she showed up at Andrew's hotel while he was drunk after a business dinner, looking for comfort. That was the second time. Maybe the first time was an accident. But what about the second? Later, Andrew went on a trip to the south and got caught in an earthquake. Fiona, pregnant at the time, dug him out of the rubble with her bare hands. That act of saving his life, combined with the child she was carrying, made it impossible for Andrew to leave her behind. He knelt in front of me, sobbing, and I laid out my conditions. Andrew, either we divorce, or she leaves. I'm not getting divorced. Andrew's eyes were red as he clutched me. But I have to take responsibility for her. He didn't want to divorce me, and he wouldn't send Fiona away either. So I left. I went to the mountains to cultivate myself and find inner peace. I only came back because Fiona had given birth, and Mr. and Mrs. Han forced me to return. In the darkness, I picked up my phone and finally sent the message I should have sent long ago. Let's get a divorce. Not 10 minutes later, hurried footsteps echoed outside. Andrew burst through the door, sweat dripping down his forehead. Rachel, I don't agree to a divorce. I sat quietly on the sofa and let out a long sigh. Forget it, Andrew. I'm just too tired. I told you, she'll never come between us. His voice trembled with desperation. At that moment, his phone rang. On the other end came Fiona's tearful voice. Young Master Han, the baby fell earlier and got scared. He has a fever now. The doctor said he might need to go into the ICU. Andrew's Han face changed instantly. He looked at me, then down at his phone. After a moment of struggle, he finally said, Rachel, I have to go check on them. I watched him rush out and couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. This was my marriage, where even our divorce had to wait behind another woman and her child. Chapter 3. I gave a bitter smile, the corners of my mouth curling. Go on, the baby needs you. He rushed out, and the breeze stirred by his movement brushed across my cheek. As if he had never been there at all, I sat alone in the darkness, tears silently falling down my face. I knew he might never marry Fiona, but he'd always be called away because of her. If I don't get divorced, how long will I have to endure this? A lifetime? A sharp, familiar pain stabbed through my stomach. I unlocked my phone and saw Fiona's latest post on WeChat, a picture of Andrew keeping vigil beside the incubator day and night. The anxious look on his face was one I had never seen before. I contacted my lawyer to draft the divorce agreement, then went to the office to submit my resignation. The HR manager looked at me in surprise. Madam, does Andrew know you're resigning? I smiled faintly. He doesn't have time to care about this right now. I saw the flicker of sympathy in her eyes, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. I returned to the mountain villa in the west, the one we had only occasionally stayed in after our wedding. While packing, I found an old, yellowed note. Rachel, I don't know when you'll find this letter. By then, we probably will already have a few kids. I love you, no matter what happens. Don't leave me. Tears fell onto the paper just as a violent pain tore through my stomach. Everything went black, and I collapsed to the floor. When I regained consciousness, my phone was ringing nonstop. Rachel Lynn, what the hell do you think you're doing? Andrew's roar echoed from the other end. He rarely ever called me by my full name. Fiona's already being careful enough. How many times have I told you, she's not a threat to your position? Why would you send such malicious messages? Why would you curse my child? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He didn't even ask if it was true. He had already convicted me without hesitation. Are you done? I asked calmly. He was silent for a few seconds. The 1-month banquet is next Sunday. You have to be there. Stop being difficult. All right? Fine. I hung up and stared into the pitch-black night outside the window. On the day of the 1-month banquet, I arrived without any makeup. Everyone looked at me with pity. At the center of the venue, Fiona wore a red dress and nestled against Andrew. looking every bit like the true lady of the house. Mrs. Hahn urged me. Go take a look at the baby. Andrew handed me one of the babies and whispered. Rachel, I won't press the issue about the messages. Once today's over, I'll send Fiona abroad. Both kids are registered under your name. You know you can't have children. Isn't this the best of both worlds? His voice was pleading, and my heart clenched. During the avalanche years ago, I had injured my uterus while saving him. He once fought with his parents for me and swore he would never have children again. Now, everything had changed. Suddenly, the baby in my arms started coughing violently, white foam bubbling from its mouth. What's happening to the baby? Someone screamed. Chapter 4. Fiona suddenly rushed over, her scream piercing. Madam, if you want to hurt someone, come at me, just don't hurt the baby. Smack! Mr. Hahn slapped me hard across the face. My vision went black as I collapsed to the floor. A burning pain spread across my cheek, and the taste of blood filled my mouth. Andrew instinctively reached out to catch me. The baby suddenly let out a sharp cry, then vomited a mouthful of blood. The room plunged into chaos. Young Master Hahn, Fiona shrieked as she shoved between us. The baby, something's wrong. Save the baby. Andrew's hands trembled violently. I watched the pain in his eyes gradually fade until he let go of me completely. Then he turned to scoop up the bleeding baby in his arms. The hallway at the hospital was unbearably cold. I stood there like a ghost, and the divorce papers slipped out of my pocket, falling to the floor. Mrs. Hahn quickly picked them up and shoved them back at me with a scowl. Her well-maintained face was twisted with disgust. Has the Hahn family ever wronged you in any way? Andrew went against us for your sake. We endured it all. And now you're trying to harm a child? If you want a divorce, then fine. Hurry up and get out. Stop clinging on. I quietly picked up the crumpled papers. Andrew walked out of the ICU with red-rimmed eyes. The baby's safe. He looked at me with a cold, unfamiliar gaze. Rachel, this time, you've gone too far. My hands trembled as I handed him the divorce papers. We're done. His pupils contracted sharply. Are you sure? I'm tired, I said, choking back my tears. I don't know what I might do if this keeps going. Fine. Perfect. He snatched the papers and scrawled his signature across the bottom before throwing the pen to the floor. Just the way you wanted. When I returned to our former home, the housekeeper rushed over. Madam, what happened to you? She choked on her words when she saw my swollen face and rain-soaked clothes. I looked around. My piano was gone. The wedding photo had disappeared. Even my cherished keepsakes were nowhere to be found. The housekeeper wrung her hands awkwardly. Miss Fiona kept bumping into things during her pregnancy. Young Master Hahn said. The door suddenly opened. Andrew walked in with Fiona by his side. Fiona blinked in surprise. Madam, what brings you here? Her tone was as if she were the real mistress of the house. Where are my things? I asked, my voice shaking. Looking straight at Andrew, he sneered and pulled Fiona closer. You're divorcing me. What do you care about those things? Fiona reached out to touch my arm, feigning kindness. Madam, young Master Hahn was just afraid I'd bump into something while pregnant. Don't touch me. I slapped her hand away. She screamed and stumbled backward. Andrew caught her immediately, his voice filled with worry. Are you okay? I looked at their intimate display and turned to leave without hesitation. Even when Andrew called my name from behind, I didn't look back. I didn't want them to see my tear-streaked face. Outside, the rain poured down relentlessly. I walked aimlessly until I was cornered in a dark alley by a group of thugs. You're the Hahn family's wife, right? Someone paid us to take care of you. The scar-faced man smirked, stepping closer. Damn. This billionaire's wife really is a beauty. Small chest, but that face real fresh. Instinctively, I dialed Andrew's number. On the other end, I heard his gentle voice. Fiona, if you've got a headache, just rest for a while. Andrew, help me. I don't want to talk to you right now. The line went dead. I tried calling again, but his phone was turned off. Cold rain mixed with tears dripped into my mouth, bitter, salty, and unbearable. No one's coming here to save you. Be a good girl and have some fun with us. Yeah. A thug's hand yanked at my collar, his rough fingers brushing over my collarbone. I shut my eyes tightly, nails digging deep into my palms. Chapter 5. Suddenly, several dull thuds exploded in my ears, followed by cries of pain. But the agony I'd braced myself for never came. Trembling, I opened my eyes. Those thugs were sprawled across the ground, groaning in pain. Still shaken, I crouched down, my whole body overcome by the weakness of having narrowly escaped disaster. At the end of the alley, a tall figure walked toward me, boots splashing through the puddles. "Can you still stand?" A hand with clear, sharp knuckles reached out to me. There was still fresh blood on the fingertips. I looked up along that hand and met a pair of fox-like eyes gleaming with amusement and a hint of danger in the rainy night. He wore a roguish grin, relaxed and mocking. I knew who he was. Andrew's longtime rival, Phineas. He had a terrible reputation in a city. Everyone said he was a notorious playboy, with a long string of flings and scandals. It was said he drowned himself daily in wine and women. As if already hollowed out, every time Andrew mentioned him, he would frown. "That Phineas is useless, he's aimless all day. None of the elite families take him seriously." I had seen him once at a party. He was undeniably good-looking, but he had a garishly dressed, busty woman hanging on his arm, completely out of place with the classy crowd. He didn't care at all, just cheerfully greeted people like he belonged. Ever since then, I'd had a very poor impression of him. I tried to speak, but darkness swallowed me and I collapsed forward. A strong arm caught me just in time. Before losing consciousness completely, I caught a faint whiff of cologne mixed with rain and the scent of blood from his clothes. When I woke up, I was lying in a finely decorated room with a distinct French flair. Gentle sunlight filtered through the curtains and warmed the bed. On the bedside table were several limited edition porcelain dolls, ones I had long adored but could never get my hands on. "You're awake," came a lazy voice from the doorway. Phineas leaned casually against the doorframe, dressed in a crisply ironed white shirt, completely different from the roguelike figure from the alley. In a daze, I blurted out, "You look really good dressed like that." He paused, then let out a low chuckle. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly as he laughed. It was only then that I realized what I'd said. My face turned bright red, and I quickly pulled the blanket up to hide half my face. "We've already identified those men," he said, dragging a chair over and sitting beside the bed, crossing his long legs carelessly. "It was Fiona. She sent them after you. I've already taken care of it." I stared at him in shock, tightening my grip on the blanket. "What?" He raised an eyebrow, his smirk laced with provocation. "Thought I was just some womanizing loser?" The next morning, a team of doctors in white coats arrived to give me a full medical checkup. Phineas leaned against the wall nearby, speaking lightly. "You kept clutching your stomach out of habit, so I called in my old man's private medical team." But when the final results came back, his expression darkened instantly. Chapter 6. "There's something bad in your stomach, early stage," he said through gritted teeth, fists clenched tightly. "Rachel, what kind of life have you been living all these years?" I didn't really understand. Why was he so angry? The treatment process was pure hell. Whenever I vomited to the point the world spun, Phineas was always there, steadily holding me up by the shoulders. One day, while I was getting in for drip, my phone buzzed with a notification. Fiona had just posted a new update. A 9-photo collage. She was lying on a bed in my pajamas. The final photo showed a baby bottle. The caption read, "Thanks to someone for making space. This place finally feels like home." Those images spun endlessly in my head, refusing to fade. That night, I tossed and turned in pain, unable to sleep. Suddenly, I felt something fruity pressed into my mouth, a peach-flavored candy. Its sweetness slowly spread. "Tastes good, right?" His voice was gentle in the darkness, and he softly wiped the drool from the corner of my lips with his finger. And just like that, I drifted off to sleep. 1 month later, early one morning, he burst into the room holding a stack of test results. "Everything's normal." He looked exhausted, his hair disheveled. My nose stung a little. "How long has it been since you slept?" "Wait, what's that smell?" The air froze. The ever-carefree Phineas actually turned red at the ears, and looked away. After a moment, he stood abruptly. "I'm going to shower." I was feeling much better, lighter even, and finished 2 bowls of hot porridge in one sitting. Then the door opened again. Phineas walked in wearing a fresh white shirt, his hair still damp, the collar slightly open, revealing a sculpted collarbone. I swallowed involuntarily. This had to be intentional seduction. When he saw me eating porridge, his eyes lit up with happiness. "Rachel," he said, eyes gleaming. "You'll never have to suffer from stomach pain again." He sat on the sofa, hesitated for a long while, and then finally said, "Rachel, could you maybe consider me?" I nearly choked on the porridge, coughing uncontrollably. He rushed over to pat my back gently. He was so close. I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. When he lowered his head to look at me, his usually indifferent eyes were slightly misty, just like the golden retriever I had as a kid. I sighed silently. It's over. Once a woman starts to feel pity for a man, she's already falling. You and Andrew already signed the divorce papers. He looked down, voice barely above a whisper. Just try to give me a chance, okay? No sooner had he said that than he jumped to his feet. You don't have to give me an answer right now. Just call me when you've decided. I won't bother you in the meantime. As soon as he walked out, I picked up my phone and called him. About what you said earlier. I agree. Laughter came through the line, low and satisfied. Mrs. Hahn, this is the last time I'll call you that. Looking forward to our partnership. Fast footsteps echoed from outside the door, followed by it being thrown wide open. He rushed in and pulled me into his arms, his scent instantly enveloping me. My eyes instinctively drifted to his half-open collar. My heartbeat sped up, as if possessed. I cupped his face and kissed him. His whole body froze, then, recovering, his arms wrapped tightly around my waist. The kiss was deep and long. When I finally pushed him away gently, I whispered, "I'm still a patient." Phineas gripped my hand tightly, his eyes bright with joy. "Rachel, I'm really, really happy." At that moment, I could practically see a giant golden retriever wagging its tail like crazy. Chapter 7. Lately, Andrew had been feeling a heavy weight pressing down on his heart, like he was carrying a massive boulder. The baby's condition had finally improved, but Rachel hadn't reached out to him at all. That scene in the villa kept replaying in his mind, her pale face, her trembling hands, and that soft, distant voice, "Let's get a divorce." So much time had passed, surely by now, she would have cooled off, right? He picked up his phone and, out of habit, dialed the number he knew by heart. "We're sorry. The number you have dialed has been disconnected." The robotic voice sent a jolt through his chest. Her WeChat profile had turned black, and every message he sent returned a glaring red exclamation mark. "Rachel?" he murmured under his breath, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. In all their years of marriage, no matter how angry she had been, she had never blocked him before. He drove to the company. "Where's Rachel?" The office workers exchanged awkward glances before someone replied. "Manager Rachel resigned a while ago." Staggering upstairs, Andrew was greeted by the sight of a strange man slamming his hand on a desk, shouting, "Useless idiots! Andrew put me in charge of you. You get paid for nothing. What use are any of you?" Andrew's voice turned cold as ice. "Who are you?" The man immediately changed his tone and smiled sheepishly. "Andrew, I'm Fiona's cousin." Andrew suddenly remembered Fiona had mentioned wanting to get her cousin a job. His vision darkened. With a roar, he flipped the desk. "Get out of my sight!" The cousin turned pale as a sheet and scurried away in panic. When Andrew got home, Fiona was lounging on the sofa, casually painting her nails while the nanny walked back and forth with the baby. "Fiona, what the hell is going on with your cousin?" Andrew asked irritably, tugging at his tie. Fiona's eyes instantly welled with tears. "Andrew, I'm sorry. He threatened me, said if I didn't help him find a job, he'd hit me. I didn't know what else to do." Andrew waved her off, clearly annoyed. "Enough. Just don't let people like that bother me again." The irritation inside him only grew stronger, until it clenched at his chest. Without another word, he rushed to the villa in the suburbs. He knocked for a long time, no one answered. He finally entered using the keypad. The house was silent, unnervingly so. A thin layer of dust covered the furniture. In the kitchen, spoiled food emitted a rotten stench. Standing in the middle of the living room, Andrew suddenly found it hard to breathe. Then, the doorbell rang. It was a delivery man, handing him an old, yellowed postcard. It was one Rachel had written 10 years ago. during their trip to Tibet. She had laughed back then and said she'd send it to her future self. Andrew rushed out the door and immediately called his assistant. "Have you found her yet? She's been gone for so long and no one even noticed?" The assistant replied, voice shaking with fear. "Madam ordered us not to disturb her while she was staying at the villa. We truly don't know where she went." "Then find her," Andrew roared. "I don't care if you have to tear the whole city apart, just bring her back." Not long after, someone delivered a necklace that had been found by a passerby. Andrew took a step back, heart sinking. It was Rachel's necklace, the one she always wore. Inside the pendant was a tiny folded copy of their wedding photo. In the days that followed, Andrew searched almost every place he could think of: cafes, bookstores, flower shops, art galleries. But there was no trace of her anywhere. He grew thinner by the day. The man in the mirror had sunken eyes and a sharp jaw now shadowed by unshaven stubble. Piles of documents delivered by his assistant stacked up like small mountains. Yet he didn't even have the strength to glance at them. Late at night, he often sat alone in the bedroom that had once belonged to both of them, staring blankly at a photo of her. "Rachel," he murmured softly, "where are you?" Sometimes, he would jolt awake from a dream, convinced he had heard her voice, only to open his eyes to nothing but endless darkness and silence. His phone screen remained fixed on her contact information, but every call he made was met with the same cold, robotic response. "Andrew, you need to rest," his assistant urged gently, but he only shook his head and picked up his car keys again. "I'm going out to search again, maybe today. I'll find her." Chapter 8. Life at Phineas's home was calm and warm. My complexion gradually regained its healthy glow, and my body felt stronger with each passing day. That afternoon, I was lounging in a wicker chair in the garden, soaking up the sunlight, when I heard a rustling sound from the bushes. "Slow down, old man, don't get caught. I just want to see what kind of girl could make Phineas care this much." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Are you two looking for me?" An elderly couple emerged, nudging each other as they walked. The old woman playfully smacked the old man on the arm. "This is your fault." They sat down on either side of me, eyes twinkling as they studied me. "You really are beautiful," the old man said. "No wonder our boy lost his mind the moment he saw you. He's ignored every other girl." The old lady quickly interrupted. "Dear, don't listen to him. Phineas may look like a flirt, but he's actually very devoted. We used to worry because he was almost 30 and still hadn't brought home a girlfriend. We kept setting up blind dates for him, but he pretended to be partying all the time, just to annoy us. It wasn't until later he told us he already had someone in his heart. He just never had the chance to be with her." Just then, Phineas came running over, slightly out of breath, sweat on his brow. "Grandpa, Grandma, don't bother her, she needs to rest." The two elders exchanged a knowing smile. "Look at him, already jumping to protect you." As they left, they both gave me a playful wink. Phineas looked slightly embarrassed. "Sorry. My assistant probably told them you were here. They didn't say anything too strange, did they?" I shook my head. The sunlight shimmered over his lashes, casting soft golden shadows. "Rachel," he said suddenly in a gentle voice, "today's my birthday. Will you come with me?" I nodded. As night fell, Phineas stood on the deck of the cruise ship, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, so handsome it was hard to look away. I was momentarily lost in thought when, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a familiar figure on the boat next to ours. It was Andrew and Fiona. I instinctively frowned, turning slightly to avoid being seen. But then, hurried footsteps sounded behind me. "Rachel!" Before I knew it, Andrew had stepped onto the cruise. His eyes locked onto mine, filled with a tangled mess of emotions I couldn't begin to unravel. Chapter 9. Phineas stood beside me, his voice full of anger. "Who let him up here?" Andrew rushed in front of me and grabbed my wrist. "Rachel, where have you been? Why haven't you come home after all this time?" I pulled my hand away. "Mr. Hahn, we've already broken up. Where I go shouldn't concern you anymore." His face instantly went pale. "Rachel, what do you mean by that?" "I only signed that agreement because I was furious at the time. Besides, we never got an official divorce certificate, and we didn't divide the property. How is that a real divorce?" You're coming home with me right now. Phineas stepped in front of him. Sorry, but on my yacht. Neither Andrew nor any dogs are welcome. Andrew's face darkened further, and his eyes turned red. He pointed at Phineas. Who the hell do you think you are? Did you lock my wife up? I'm calling the police. Phineas gave a cold laugh. Locked up? Do you even know Rachel was almost assaulted? And you? As her husband, where the hell were you? Andrew froze. What do you mean? Assaulted? Rachel, what happened? He paused, suddenly remembering how my voice had sounded like a cry for help during our last phone call, but he had assumed I was just being dramatic. He looked at me. Rachel, I'm sorry. Fiona had a fever that day, and I thought you were just throwing a tantrum. Phineas isn't a good person. Don't get involved with him. He's using you just to get at me. That's enough. I cut him off. I don't want to see you. Andrew tried to move toward me again, but suddenly Fiona's shrill voice rang out from behind. Young Master Han, the nanny said the baby's sick. Come home with me, now. She rushed over and tried to grab me. In the chaos, both Fiona and I fell into the water. Help! I can't swim! Help! I don't want to die! Fiona thrashed in the water, screaming in panic. Andrew immediately jumped in, swimming toward her, even though I should have long given up on him. Watching him swim toward someone else still hurt like hell. A pair of strong arms pulled me out of the water. Phineas held me tightly in his embrace. Don't be afraid. I'm here. When I woke up, Phineas was sitting at my bedside, the dark circles under his eyes as deep as bruises. Outside the hospital room, there was a commotion. Move! She's my wife! Why won't you let me see her? Beside him stood a woman holding two babies, about 1 year old, both wailing loudly. Andrew, let's just go. The woman tried to calm him down. Andrew shoved her aside. Get out of my way. I'm going in. I slowly sat up and said calmly, let them in. All that noise is giving me a headache. Andrew burst into the room, his face filled with worry. Rachel, are you okay? I looked at him blankly. Who are you? Chapter 10. He froze completely, his face turning deathly pale in an instant. The hospital room went silent. You could almost hear the sound of a heartbeat. The doctor standing nearby explained, this patient previously underwent cancer treatment, which may have caused some side effects, combined with the oxygen deprivation from nearly drowning. Short-term memory loss is a possible result. Cancer treatment? Andrew suddenly grabbed the doctor's coat. What cancer treatment? He turned to look at me, his voice trembling. Rachel, it's me, your husband. Andrew. I tilted my head and looked at him for a second, then suddenly burst into a light laugh. You say you're my husband, but then why? My eyes drifted to Fiona, who stood at the door holding two babies. Why do you have children with her? His face turned a patchy mix of red and white. He swallowed hard. It's because, that night, I was drugged. She wandered in by accident, and then, it was my fault. Drugged? I widened my eyes and spoke in mock disbelief. Andrew, what do you think this is? A soap opera? Let's say the first time was an accident. I began counting on my fingers. What about the second time? That drug must have lasted 1.5 years. Those two babies don't even look like they're 1 year old yet. Phineas cut in. Sounds like a very long-lasting drug. Andrew's face turned an even deeper shade of green, while Fiona stood trembling beside him. I was just cleaning the guest room. Cleaning a guest room in the middle of the night? I let out a few scoffs. How the hell did someone with your IQ become a CEO? You two are something else, one bold enough to lie, the other dumb enough to believe it. Then I said firmly, so no, you're not my husband. My husband wouldn't sleep with another woman, twice. I pointed to Phineas. This is my husband. Phineas couldn't help but burst into laughter. Andrew looked like he'd just been slapped. He stumbled back several steps, his face full of disbelief and humiliation. Suddenly, he raised his voice and pointed at Phineas. Bastard! Now I get it. This was your plan all along. You're the one who drugged me, weren't you? You wanted to steal Rachel from me and destroy our relationship. You planned all of this, didn't you? Phineas stared at him with dead serious eyes. Are you insane? I don't stoop to that kind of sleazy behavior. I rubbed my temples. I'm tired. I want to rest. Soon after, The bodyguards came in and escorted Andrew and Fiona out of the room. After I recovered, I began preparing for my wedding with Phineas. When I said the words "I do," the powerful tycoon standing before me actually looked nervous and awkward, like a teenage boy experiencing his first love. He held my hand tightly, and his voice trembled. I will give you the most grand wedding imaginable. I want the whole world to know you're the love of my life. After that, Andrew showed up several times, trying to see me. Each time made Phineas visibly tense. Are you afraid? I teased him on purpose, worried I might go back to him. He said. Phineas replied in a dry voice. He'd give up everything if you'd return to him. He'd even give those 2 children away. Something tainted, I said casually, flipping through the wedding gown photo album in my hands, is never worth taking back. Andrew, rejected at every turn, slowly turned into a broken man. One day, as Andrew came home in low spirits, he heard voices coming from the bedroom. Hurry up! If young Master Han comes back, we'll be in trouble. That was Fiona's voice. What's the rush? Word is he's been chasing after that woman every day lately, doesn't even look at you anymore. Came a man's voice, her cousin's. It's been too long since I had a good time. Be a good girl and take care of me, Fiona said bitterly. That bitch! I asked you to have someone mess with Rachel last time, but she ended up getting saved by Phineas's people. How is her luck so damn good? Wasn't it just a little mold slipped into her food? The fact that her stomach tumor got cured afterward. Guess she was just too lucky. Aren't you supposed to be clever? You even managed to get pregnant with his kid. Use your brain again, maybe drug him one more time? The voices and laughter from inside the room became more and more vile. Andrew clenched his fists and gave a subtle nod to the bodyguards behind him. Moments later, several guards burst into the room and pinned the 2 to the ground. Fiona started crying and screaming. Young Master Han, please! I was forced. The man spat on the floor. Forced my ass. You were the one who seduced me. Said you were desperate and Han wouldn't touch you. Before he could finish, his leg was broken on the spot. Fiona tried to keep making excuses, but a guard covered her mouth and nose, knocking her unconscious. Later, Andrew had Fiona committed to a psychiatric hospital under strict surveillance. On the day of my wedding, he stood outside the venue shouting at the top of his lungs, Rachel, don't you love me anymore? Have you really forgotten me? Through someone else. I sent him a final message. Everything you've done has crossed my bottom line. Maybe I tolerated it once, but I never will again. Inside the venue, Phineas gently slipped the wedding ring onto my finger. Outside, Andrew knelt on the ground, crying in despair. It said that he remained single for the rest of his life, raising those 2 children alone until his death. As for Phineas and me, even the doctors said I might never be able to conceive, but in the end, a miracle happened. We had a baby girl. One quiet afternoon, while I was playing with our daughter, Phineas wrapped his arms around me from behind. Back then, your acting was so convincing, he whispered. I almost believed you'd really lost your memory. Our daughter came running over, giggling and begging for hugs. I smiled and looked out the window, knowing deep down, I would never see Andrew again.